Welcome back to the Hot Mess to Awesomeness podcast, a show all about inspiring smart, busy women to put their happiness at the top of their to-do list. Join your host and life coach, Dion Thompson, as she chats with amazing women who have figured out how to make their happiness a priority, and more importantly, what it's really like to go from hot mess to awesomeness. And now, on with the show.
Welcome everyone to the Hot Mess to Awesomeness podcast. I am your host and holy fucking sweaty life coach, Dion Thompson. Okay. So my guest today is Jen Wende, and we just danced our asses off, but I just wanted to make a few comments here. So I haven't said anything to you yet. I want to wait till we recorded.
Of course.
That was like liberating. And you and I have connected, and in such an energetic way, obviously not physically because we're in different provinces, but, and I don't know if it's the books that are behind you because I get all super excited about that, but I felt like when I looked at you, it was like seeing what I would like to see in the mirror when I'm dancing. Doesn't actually look the same. You're very skilled and free and flowing and fabulous. And I was like, maybe I just want to be taller. But the point is, I felt so connected, and I've sweat profusely. I had to take off my slippers like that. It was a thing. So thank you for some kick-ass songs, which they're going to be in the show notes. So feel free to make a little playlist and dance your little heart out, because thank you. That was awesome.
You're welcome. Well, you got moves too, girl. So don't be selling yourself short there, please.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So if you're watching the video, you know, you can only see me from like the shoulders up. I got some killer moves from the shoulders up, let me tell you.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
And I do want to comment, because of course we chatted about it before we started dancing, was that you had chosen a song from Frozen 2. And so for the I don't know who doesn't know Frozen 2, but if you don't happen to know or are familiar with that particular movie, it was brilliantly done musically, and the lyrics are really on point as far as like the evolution of self and stepping into your own and really embracing who you are and loving yourself for just who you are in that moment. And of course that becomes part of the story. Spoiler if you haven't seen it, but anyway.
Yeah. Spoiler alert.
And we both have young children, and so of course it's something that has been in our lives, and but I can't listen or watch those movies now without getting really emotional. So I'm again super grateful that you included that, because it added another layer of sort of like parts of me into that moment. So it was just pretty cool. And
yeah, absolutely. That song Into the Unknown, I think it just hits on so many of our journeys. You know, we have to move into the unknown to get there, and she doesn't want to, because everything, she's comfortable where she is, like, and so and then she has to, and it turns out to be she finds herself. And so I don't know, like, coaching done. Just watch Frozen 2. Watch Frozen 1 and 2. Put yourself in their position. Apply it to your life. Done. Complete.
You know what? That sounds like a course. We should probably launch that. And it's funny. If you don't already know this, the people who are listening, so it was made available to the public right when the pandemic started, and we were all put into isolation. And then Disney threw it on the Disney Channel, so you could watch it without having gone to the theaters. And it almost felt like, for me, like this is what the world needs right now, is to tap into this energy of embracing the unknown, because of course that's what so many people were fighting, that particular fear, especially for the first 3-4 months, and ongoing now. And now it's manifesting in different ways. But in those early days where we were all just like, what the fuck? It to me, like, there's that one line of like, just do the next right thing. I'm like, that's it for me. Like if I did nothing else but just made that my mantra, that allowed me to move through some pretty heavy shit.
Yes. Yes.
You know, you didn't know when you started listening to this podcast it was going to be about Disney movies, but we could do that.
We could do that, and it's so true. And the courage that Anna has as she does this next right thing, and she thinks her sister's gone, and like she's just holding on. Like we've all been there. I know for me, I've definitely been there, and it's being able to take the advice of Frozen 2 before it was out. has got me where I am. I wouldn't be here without doing the next right thing, or without embracing, like stepping into the unknown, even though I was scared and I didn't want to leave everything behind, but I just knew there was something out there for me. And because of that, like, here we are.
We are. So let's tell the people where you are in particular. So for those of you that are listening and maybe don't know Jen yet, so Jen is a generational healer and soul guide. World travels, motherhood, and her own self-healing journey focused her extensive and unique skill set on helping feminine leaders heal deep-rooted patterns and conditionings blocking them on a soul level so they can feel more free, confident, and at peace with who they are and how they create an impact. So you're Anna and Elsa wrapped into one.
I know.
And
Yeah.
speaking of generational healing, that movie is all about generational healing, but that's fine.
No, I know. And like, I could actually go into that too. I'm like, they are healing the generations of, of what happened before and the imprint that created.
Right.
Okay. This is totally going to be the theme of the podcast. We've just figured it out. We didn't know this in advance, but yeah, they are healing those generations. And I'll say one other thing about this. I'm sure I'll say more things, but just even, showing up as a leader, like as their parents, they were the king and the queen, right, of the land. But where I feel like they lacked was in the communication, the fact that the sisters weren't together, or that Elsa had all of this fear, is because they weren't talking about it. And so it's important to talk about it. It's important to dive into that love, and they're trying to solve all the problems, but it's about this communication. And so, I know as parents, as women, like we tend to want to hold this stuff in and deal with it by ourselves because we can happen. But if you just share it, if you just shout it out, like those girls could have taken a lot of trauma off their plates,
Right.
Like,
yes, if they had just come to us first, they
That's
probably would have much fewer problems, and the fifth spirit would have arisen very peacefully and fabulously.
100%. Yeah. And now if they want to, though, the sisters, if there's still residual like generational traumas, I'll invite them over. You're invited, Elsa and Anna, to come for a session with me.
Yes. so Jen, fucking absolutely, by the way. And I guarantee you they're listening to this podcast right now because it's awesome. So tell me more about that. Tell me about how you got to this space, that understanding, that awareness, which happened long before Frozen and Frozen 2 came out. So walk us through those experiences, because I know when it comes to healing, it's not fucking pretty. So what was that like for you?
Ooh, well, it wasn't pretty. It was really uncomfortable. There was so much, like, there's a few different places I can start. And I'll tie it into my own sort of generational journey. When my dad died when I was 19, it was sudden. And the biggest thing that happened was I lost my identity. I was 19, so I thought I had all of it together. I had my own identity. What's that all about? I was like, I moved away from that. And then he died. And I felt really lost in who I was, because I was always comparing myself, I guess, subconsciously, like to, who I am in relation to my parents, because they were the people, like what they did, like affected me. And so I think that was my first experience of healing generational trauma, of going through that. He also died at the same age in the same way as his dad died. And so I also, again, I didn't know I was going on a generational healing journey to like actually do generational healing with like the ancestors and stuff. But it was my first thing of like, how do I break that pattern? Because I don't want to be 49 and die suddenly. That's not what I want to happen to me. And so, I feel all of these little connections that have come along the way have been a part of that, of me releasing that pain or that attachment to needing to follow in the footsteps of my family, or be there or do the same things. And and really just find who I am on my own soul level, what it means to me, and what patterns are supporting our family, but what ones really need to leave. Like, we don't all need to die at 49. Like that's an extreme one. Do you know what I mean? But
Right.
there was like money things and different aspects, like worth parts, and all of these little bits that come out too. So that was like the main start, totally unconsciously, of my generational healing journey.
So what's some of the work that you did? Because I know that, I mean, from my personal experience working with clients, I mean, just my knowledge of how this works is it's not, you don't just get there, right? So there's it's like a fucking stinky onion. There are layers, and you peel them back, and then you do more work, and then you fall down and you get up. So what are some of the things that you turn to in that moment? So you kind of have this unconscious or subconscious awareness bubble up, and then what action do you take? What was the next right thing for you?
Well, I was like, the next wrong step was I was in university and I just partied a lot. And I put it to the side. And then, it took quite a while, but actually the very next step, which put me on my journey, was, that was, oh, I was 20, I wasn't 20. So my dad died at 19, when I was 19. At 27, I left Canada. And I went on a travel. I did my, let's bring in another story, an eat, pray, love story of my own.
Right.
And I did this because it was time. It was like I needed to break free of everything that I was doing, and find that my own spark, and be able to wake up in the morning and be like, what is it that I want to do today? What is this about? Start to gain insider knowledge of what else is out there, because the patterns and what I was doing, it wasn't working for me. I wasn't happy. I was depressed. I was not being kind to myself. And so I needed to physically leave. And I did so. And I ended up doing so for, I think I was like 3.5 years.
Wow.
That I didn't come back for that. So that was the next right thing. But the intention was to, it was to just be able to wake up and be like, what do I need? Because I don't know, I'm getting all of this information. It's meant to be, I'm meant to do it this way for society. I'm meant to do it this way because I'm a woman. I'm meant to do it this way because I'm a daughter. Or not that I never felt like I had that pressure. But it was a part of my soul's journey to do that.
Mm-hmm. I think that for a lot of us, we were oblivious to the overtness of it because it was just ingrained, right? It wasn't something that was necessarily blatantly said to you that you can't and you should and you must, but it was very understood at a like what you just do and don't do, where the truths are in life. So I love that you had sort of taken your soul for a walk.
I did. Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it. I took my soul for a walk and was like, I'm going to go on a long walk. And along the way, wow, like that's like 30 podcasts in one, the different aspects that I had, but it connected me to my spirit and my soul in a way that I never had. And it was so interesting. So, partway through, maybe midway, I was in Southeast Asia at this time. And it's not necessarily religion, but they're really dedicated to every like times, certain times of the day, going and just like taking an intentional moment and, like praying or honoring something. And me, I'm going to be totally honest with how I felt at that time. I was like, oh, that's really neat, but this is so terrible to think. It's very judgmental. But I was like, if they just spent that time doing something else, then maybe they could like move forward with something.
Right. They're not being productive.
No, I was like, they're not being productive at
Sitting
all.
is not productive. I mean,
No.
all the people pleaser, perfectionist people, go. Your value is based on what you do. People know that you have to be doing something in order to be of worth.
That's it. And and then fast forward to, I don't know, like 10, 12 years later, I am a professional sitter. I'm like, I'm that person that's like, oh no, you need to take this time now. In fact, let's take this time together and let's really like listen to what's being said.
Yeah.
And so that was some of my first conscious moments of, okay, there's something going on. And from there, after I had my judgmental moment, um, I started to meet people, to get more of the story. And then I started to get curious. And then I was like, okay, what is in this? What is all like, what's going on? Where are we? Like, and the people I met and the experiences I had and the healings that became present were all so beautiful and directly led me to here. Yeah.
Okay, so wow, what a trip, and so much learning. Um, I that I feel was occurring almost at like a higher self level. Not that your higher self needs to learn, but the connection to you. But what brought you back here? Like 3.5 years, and then
I got really sick.
oh,
So yeah. So it was like this whole journey. Like I learned, like, it was my first thing for energy healing. Like I felt really good about myself. I found all of these things. I felt like my higher self didn't need to learn, but I needed to learn about my higher self.
right.
And I felt like I finally found my higher self. And I was literally in the foothills of the Himalaya mountains in Nepal. I had been living in a Buddhist monastery, like in silence. And I just felt like I found myself. And I was like, I just knew at that moment that I was like, I needed to help people. Like there was a lot of other things, but I was like, this is what I'm going to be a life coach. I'm going to do these things. Like, this is what is it. And I felt it. And in that moment, I did decide, I talked to my mom and I was like, okay, I had been in India before that, and I'd done a yoga teacher training, and I, studied, I'd done my second level Reiki. Like I'd had a bunch of these sort of experiences that came with it. And I had that moment and I felt so beautiful. And my mom wanted to come and visit. And so we decided we would meet in Italy. And so I was like, okay, like that'll be great. And then, this will be my ticket home. So I was like, but before I go, I like went to visit friends in Turkey. I went to like Italy, France. And then my part of me that had found myself in the Himalayas kind of was like that Elsa of like, oh, but I'm really comfortable here. I'm comfortable with who I am. And maybe I'll find a way. Like my money was running out. Like, I'm like, maybe I'll find a way and I'll go to South America this time. Like, I kind of, I resisted. I said, no. So my mother shows up on a plane to Italy and I meet her. I pick her up from the airport and I am so excited to share with her who I am.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, this is me, Mom. Like, you haven't seen this person, and poor you, because I have not like seen you in years, but like, you haven't seen this person and I can't wait to share it with you. And we had dinner or something. And I was like, oh, my side's a bit sore, whatever. And then the next day happened. I was like, oh, I'm still a bit sore. I'm like, oh, I think I'm getting a fever. Oh, this is happening. Oh, I need to go to the hospital. So my poor mother, who had come to like have a relaxing time, enjoy, reunite with her daughter, like see Italy, she ended up taking me to the hospital. And surprisingly, my Italian was not very good. I was on the south, like of the south of Italy. It was close to like French border, but there wasn't many people that spoke English. It was really Italian. And all they could do to say to me was bad blood.
Okay.
And they're like, and so they were like, well, where have you been? And I'm like, well, I've been everywhere where there's every kind of disease. And I had some pretty like sketchy experiences sometimes. I was like, it could be anything. So they put me in the infectious disease ward. Although it was really lovely because it was on the Mediterranean Ocean. So I had like my own, I was in the bed like this, like, but my mom had at least had a nice view of the Mediterranean Ocean with the balcony. And there was like 2 Sicilian twin boys who like kept trying to pick me up, even though I was like on my deathbed. really weird thing. And my mom is traveling back and forth to where we were staying to here, and like trying to figure out, like, they couldn't release me. So I was there for a week. They couldn't release me until I was stable. So they got me stable. And then my mom was like, "You're coming home." And I'm like, yeah, coming home.
Okay, yep, got it.
And so she like did her magic and like booked flights, rearranged flights, and brought me home. So instead of me coming home like that person on in the mountain, I came home in a wheelchair. And my sister was there, who's a beautiful nurse, and like they hooked me up, and I was an outpatient at the hospital for a month. And they don't ever exactly know what happened. I had some sort of abscess on my kidneys, but it went away with like these hardcore medications. And yeah, so I plummeted. This was the part where I had found myself, and now I'm here. I'm not how I want to. I am in a bad mood. I'm not very pleasant to be around. Woe is me. I really felt my crash. I'm like, how do I get there? And again, my mother, love her dearly. She was a great connector, and I ended up, she's like, well, you said you wanted to do this beforehand, so let's find the places. So I got into like an official like yoga teacher training, and I did a life coaching certificate, and she found me a job with as a chiropractic assistant with this amazing couple who runs something. It's in Nova Scotia, and then I started to find myself again. And this was the part, one of my teachers in yoga meditation, he says it's really easy anybody can be the monk on the mountain. Like anybody can find that enlightenment, but it's the monk in the city that really finds that enlightenment. And that was my whole journey. And I could cry right now because I went like, everything was on top of the world. And then I just felt like everything. I was like, what did all that mean? But it was just to show me, it was to connect me to that higher part of myself, so that as I came down and I could, work myself up. And, that's when I really changed stuff. Like I had an overhaul of my whole lifestyle, because I had been really sick. So physically I changed, mentally I changed. I was surrounded by people that were so inspiring, that I'd found a tribe that just, I just fit in. And throughout that whole thing, like, I was like, wow, this is it. Like I finally found something. And so I've been growing since then. And it's been these moments of ways. And and then I could keep going. Sorry, just one more. And then there was this one part again. So all that happened over like a very fast, like a 9-month period of time. Like, wow. So I came home, and then like I found all of this, and I like rehabilitated. I found all this stuff. I found a really comfortable, beautiful life. For the first time, I was living in Nova Scotia. I'm like, I could be here. I'm like, I found a spot. But whenever you find that spot and you're comfortable, what do you got to do? Into the unknown.
Yeah.
And I had a crazy energetic experience that told me I needed to move to Montreal.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm like, all the parts of your story are like, holy shit. But I'm really kind of like wowed by the 9-month time frame. And I'm, my brain went, oh, well, that makes sense, because you did the heavy lifting, right? Like that, the moment on the mountain, whatever you want to call it. But it's when you do that work, which often a lot of the work is happening when you don't know what's happening, because it's you just showing up and things are happening. Mm-hmm. And then your awareness grows and grows and grows. And then you go, oh my God, like, this is so great. Everybody needs to know about this. I can't wait to make this my life. Oh my God, this is so fucking great. But really that was it didn't just happen, right? It was the process. So what I love is that for it, sure, you fell pretty fucking hard. Mm-hmm. But the road back up was only 9 months. Like, that's what I think and go, that's really, for me, it's such a powerful piece that it's going to happen. Life is going to happen. Stuff out of your control, unknown, craziness, whatever. And then you deal with it because you've been amassing skills to be able to deal with shit.
Yeah.
But you did so in a way that even though you felt low, you were aligned. Right.
Yes.
So then what you had said, people showed up into your life and all of a sudden there's this community of beautifully energetic humans and beings. And well, of course they were, because
Mhm.
you had been present.
Yeah.
So I love that. So,
Yeah.
so there you are. Well, you're in Montreal now, so I'm going to guess that you made the move.
Yes, I made the move. It was like a slap in the face, like, you have to move. So I was like, okay. So I jumped ship, and then it was another climb. Huge climb, even more climbing in a different way. Well, not actually a different way. It's actually the exact same way,
Right.
exact same things, but yeah, to get me here.
Would you say that in second, third, maybe there's 4, 5, 6 climbs, but would you say that when this most recent one of you being in Montreal and experiencing these shifts, would you say there was more confidence in it? Like more like, okay, yeah, this sucks. Like I standing in front of it with more like, I've been here before. Did
Yeah.
that play a role?
Yes, it does. It did play a role. It actually played a big role because I've been there before. I know, like, I feel like even the travels made me adaptable to be like, okay, what's the situation? Where do we need to go? This is what needs to happen. I knew I needed to gain a bunch of skills. And so, there was a lot of that happened. And then the difference, the main part was worth that came into it, because I was like, okay, I know I need to do this. I know I'm here. Oh, who am I to say that I'm here? Who am I to do this? So that's like where the faltering is. But I knew that I needed to still move forward. I wasn't going to be like when I came back from travels and I was like all depressed and like, what's going to happen? I'm like, okay, I'll take a breath and I'm going to go again. And I'm going to get frustrated because I know I'm meant to be on the other side. Why can't I get to the other side faster? Well,
right.
you can only get to the other side when you need to get to the other side, and you have to go through it. You have to go through these different things. And those people are going to show up. Those healings are going to come. And it's been amazing, because that's now what I do to help people too, is I'm going to show up, and I'm going to help you find those subconscious aspects that are holding you back and making you wonder why, what do I like? Why aren't I there?
So tell me about how that transpired, which is more recently in your foray into this very enlightened state as a generational healer. So what transpired that got you to make this sort of deepening of self?
Oh, so I've always, like, we're all intuitive beings. We all have that. Okay. That, like, it doesn't matter if you're me or you, like, you have that inside of you. I have been very good at, having one foot in that intuitive world and one foot here in the real world. And I really was stamping down on my foot in the real world and, trying to keep that solid. I knew I could go there, but I was like, no, I want to be here. And then one day I came to a party and opened up with somebody who was doing generational healing, and I had this experience, this like energetic experience, and I was like, ooh, there's something in there. There's something I need to unlock here. And so I actually worked with this particular person, and through like talking and some healing work, I was able to discover different parts of myself that had shut that down. So it's like the valve, like we're not ready to go into the unknown. And I had a lot of, judgments on what that meant if I'm to go into this place, a lot of a lot of fear. Because although I knew about my soul, I had that moment on the mountain, like feeling I feel connected. It's always a journey to find it. And so I unlocked that. When I was a kid, I had an experience, a few experiences. I had dreams, and I'd noticed that they came true later. Not in the like rainbows and unicorns dreams, but one dream in particular was there was a kid, I don't know, I was maybe like 10, 8, 10. I'm not sure how old I was. And my neighbor, who was about the same age, or 7, maybe 6 or 7 at the time, there were like, my dream was there was paramedics and they were working on somebody. I don't know who, but it was down the street from me. And then wanted, like, I'm not gonna say the next day, but a little while later, I saw that exact scene, exact how it was, and it was they were working on my neighbor, a like 6 or 7-year-old, and he died. And I thought I made that come true. Um,
That's huge.
yeah, it was huge. I thought I did that. I was like, oh, um, so I didn't vocalize that to anybody. I couldn't even necessarily comprehend, like, doing the work, like allowing myself to see, like, why don't I want to be, just getting curious. Again, it's all about getting curious. Like, why am I, like, resisting kind of going into this other world? And it was that. So, I found forgiveness. I realized that, no, that's not, I didn't make that happen, but that's like intuition, like that's these different things. And that's a fear that a lot of women have, is because I don't know everybody's stories, but I went to discover my main moment, and again, that was amplified again when I was 19, because my dad died. And I remember as a kid being like, having the, oh, okay, if I had to choose between my mom and my dad, like, I guess my dad would die first. But that was me knowing as a soul. Like, again, I thought, oh my God, did I do that? Because we're taught all the time, oh, like the power of your mind, like, think it and it comes true. And you're like, oh shit, like, am I really that powerful? Like, that's not necessarily, like, I think that's an incomplete information, right?
Right.
But all of those scared me from going into that, because I was like, I don't want to have that kind of power. But you get all muddled up, because it's not like you're like you're not that evil person taking over the world trying to get the power.
But you know what? I can appreciate that underlying, like, that's a fear that, what
Yeah.
if I can't handle this? What if I end up doing things? I mean, I've done things in the past that I wasn't proud of.
Yeah.
And so it's possible it could happen again. I mean, I could see that. And just thinking about that experience you had as a young person, and that truth that then you lived into, that you did that, that you were somehow responsible. I think it's, other than the specifics of your story, it is just so prevalent in the world right now, that we carry with us these truths, the meanings that we have made based on experiences. Like, I make mommy mad. I am the one who does this, and because I just exist, this is a problem. We make these they are inferences, because they're clearly not based in factual truth, but we have to make connections based on what we do know as young people, which is very little, because our knowledge base is pretty small. And that obviously it stays with us until we get the courage to look at it and get curious about it and go, oh wait, what? No, really? I don't think so. Right?
Yes, exactly. So that's the shift, is you exactly what you said. You, like, get brave and you get curious to look at it, and then you realize it's it's not all that, like,
and
it's
and then you add in and then you forgive your younger self for just doing the best you could with what you had. And then you forgive your 19-year-old self, and your 22-year-old self, and your 30-year-old self, and how old am I now? Yesterday's self, right?
Yes.
Like, and get into this practice of being able to look back and go, I'm great, and I was great then. This is what I had, and this is what I did.
Yes.
I just think that, now you're like that embodiment of that growth, and now you have these tools and intuitive capacity to help people to do the same. So tell me more about your shift right into the work, and now how you use these gifts with others.
Um, yeah, the shift into the work was so after I had sort of embraced, that okay, this I'm going to go into this. I'd say my daughter, she's 5, like her spirit was like one of the ones like you got to do this, mommy. And I learned tools to help ground myself and help clear those, those parts of you that are naysaying and doing different things. And I actually I mean I did a particular training to learn to work with the ancestors, but it was like it was like a surrender. And once I surrendered, it felt like coming home. And I do remember the moment. It's another story. It was, partway through the training, because I still came into this kicking and screaming. I really did. The ancestors were really patient with me. My teachers were really patient with me. That my ego was like really like trying to keep me safe, being like, what are you doing? What are people going to think about you? Like, what is all this stuff going up? And my teachers, the training was where I live, but everybody, other people who had come, it, they had all come from other places. So they were having time to integrate and do these things, because you need to have time. Like, I mean, you have a session with your coach, like you need to take some time to like let that integrate. And she came up to me, she's like, Jen, you can't go home. Like my daughter was really young at this time, and you can't go home tonight right away. Like you need to give yourself at least an hour or two. Or she set it up for, so I'd go tomorrow. I was like, okay. I'm like, okay, fine. And so I was like, I kind of was like, all right, ancestors. I was like, if you're gonna prove something to me, I was a bit of a jerk.
Yeah, prove it.
Like all this like believe it first. I was like, this whole time I was like, I'm not believing anything first.
Show me the money.
You can't make me. You can't make me. Show me the money. Yeah. And so I went to bed that night and I had a dream about Lady Gaga.
She's fabulous. So
She's
cool.
And it was right around the time when that movie A Star Is Born came out. And she said, I have 4 messages for you. So okay. And then I was like, okay, Lady Gaga. So I was like, I'll believe you.
You're
so
pretty famous, so it seems cool.
All right, I believe you. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll head over and I'll go see that movie today, and that'll be my thing that I do. And I sat down and I watched the movie, and there was I don't remember what the messages were right now, but there was 4 distinct moments where the ancestors like this, and this, and I was like, whoa. I just started to connect, and I left. And I said, I'm okay. I'm going to follow you. I'm going to just follow you. I'm going to move into the unknown, I'm going to get to that Atahalan. and they were like, get soup. So I like got soup, and that's not the exciting part, but and I was like, I'm like, I need to go somewhere where I can meditate. I need to go where I can sit. And I was like, the library. And so I went to the big library here in Montreal, and it's like, but where am I going to go? It's like full of people. I felt like I really needed to be private. And I noticed I went to the library often, but there was this space that I hadn't noticed. It was like this whole other world opened up, and I like went into it, and they stopped me and they're like, this is like, this is a very, like, it was like a very sacred space. Like I couldn't bring my books in. I had to actually go through. They had lockers that you gave it to, and you could only have everything, and everybody's very quiet. And I was like, ooh, I was like, what's in here? And I was like, okay, ancestors, where do I go? And so I walked up the stairs and I looked, and they're like, I'm like, okay, there. And I was like up the stairs and to the right or whatever. And I stopped and I was like, okay, so what section am I in? And I was in the ancestral section.
Oh, fuck off.
And it was just books and books of names of ancestors, of the people that had come before. And I said, okay. And I just started bawling. I said, okay, I'm here. I know I'm meant to be here. This is it. And I sat down on the library floor and I meditated and I cried and I just communed with the ancestors in a way that I'd never done. And I was like, all right, I'm listening. I'm going to stop fighting this. like of all the places in all the city, I never planned any of this. I just listened. And to take me to this very specific, very sacred, very like, it just hit me with a, like, it just hit me so completely that I was like, okay, what else do I need to get rid of to really hone into this, to really step into my power, to really own this part of myself. And when I did, everything's opened up. Like I just, I've never felt more at home in who I am, and how I show up for myself and for everyone else. Like I feel like now I'm resonating at a level where, I mean, it's not perfect. Like I know I've got all sorts of other mountains to climb and and all of this, but I can see I can see clearly. I can feel clearly, and now it's like I see those, like just how the ancestors and other people had seen in me that part, and it's so easy to see in other people. You're like, if that just, if that's the mind, if that's the thing, or if that's the healing, or if that's the blockage, like all these blockages that are blocking your soul, um then let's move them. And so that's where I'm going, is just to keep supporting that, because I stopped and I listened. And so I suggest, if anybody can just stop and listen to what are you fighting right now? Do you
Mm.
need to be fighting it? Is
I
that really
think
what you need?
chances are no. I really just wanted to highlight, because you've said it a couple of times and it really resonates with me. It's definitely at the core of me and my work too, um, is being curious. And in
Mm,
combination with that, which you exemplified in your story, is and show yourself compassion, and allow yourself to go through what you need to go through, and be curious about what's happening in the moment. Right? I always say it's very meta. Right? So think about your thinking,
mhm.
right, and get curious about what you're curious about. Like, it's interesting that I'm asking these questions, right? Like, it's a
Yes.
bit of a rabbit hole, but it's a very powerful tool that you can do any moment of the day by yourself. Works really well with coach, not gonna lie.
Oh yeah,
um
I would not be here without coaches. I would not be here without somebody who could support me. I could maybe get here, but without people like you, Dion, like they're not gonna, you know, you have to do the work, but you don't have to do it alone. I mean, we say that all the
exactly.
time. Like you have to do the work, but you can make it a whole hell of a lot easier and lighter and funner and supportive. Um, and when you take those 2 steps forward, you don't have to take 10 back. Like.
I mean, I look at it as we are a sort of an entity, this human race,
Mhm.
or really energy beings as a whole, and we get to go through these things together. So it isn't everybody has to go through their own things, but again, it's not, for me, it comes back to this idea of independence. So
Mhm.
I've talked about this a few times in a few different areas, but this idea of your growth and what learning looks like and where sort of the end point is. And we've been conditioned, especially as women, to believe that we need to be strong, independent women.
Yeah.
So when you hear that, you hear do all the things and do them by yourself, because that's what it means to be independent. It means that you can do it well, and you didn't fucking need anybody. And
Yeah.
it exudes a little bit of that more masculine energy of like power, step on things and climb.
Mhm.
When truly that is part of the journey. You need to feel like you are capable, and you can look at yourself and go, yes, I can do these things. But there's a huge up level from there, which is that we are doing this together. And so
Mhm.
my growth and expansion, which is unique to me and I get to own it, is in it's like woven with the expansion and growth of others. and
Yes.
and like, so when you tap into people who may have been there before, or who just see things differently, or who can help you be more curious by just throwing in like one word, it's that level of help.
Yes.
Everybody hear that? Help. You're allowed. Get
Allowed to
help.
ask for help.
Yes, you're allowed to ask for it. You're allowed to receive it. You're allowed to say out loud that you got it. And you're allowed to then take everything you learn from the experience, take ownership of it. Like, just because someone helped you, you still get to be like, I fucking did that. Right. And and it's this interdependence, right? So I just don't hear that word enough outside of our circles, right? It's not,
Love that word. Oh,
right? Like we are woven together, and we rise up, pick a meme, pick a hashtag, I don't care, but there's truth in that. And that is what, I mean, you are a light and you are a guide and you are supporting others by, this sort of woven matrix of frickin' fantasticness. Oh, I get so jazzed. So Jen, tell me a little bit about, what is it that someone could expect or walk into? What is something that they could, if they're starting on that curious path, how do they find their way to you and be able to tap into this energy, this light?
they go to my website.
Yeah, that's pretty standard stuff. There will be a link in the show notes. But tell me more about what that process might be like. So,
Yeah, no, I know.
I know that so many people, they're like curious behind closed doors, like, oh, that sounds fascinating. And just like my foot is planted hard in the real world, and so I'm not going to tell anybody about this, like what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. So tell me what it's like for someone who's going to connect, and what they will be walking into, and what they will get to experience.
Yeah, well, for our first connection, it's like talking, I am connected. So like my guides, the Akashic records, like all these, like the ancestors, like everybody's with me and with you, and we're all communing. And so it feels like having like this conversation, like this podcast that we're doing, and you're sharing with me, what's going on, what's going on, and what's happening. And from there, then I get the messages. So we become real best friends real quick, really quickly. Cause there's things that there's those intimate curiosities that you are thinking of, or those parts of yourself that maybe you're feeling shame, or you're stuck, or you're like, I don't know, but you don't feel brave enough to share with anybody. I make that easeful because you're not going to necessarily have to share it. I'm probably going to ask you a question that's going to bring it out. And from there, then it all starts to get onto the table too, because with like generational healing, what comes through is I commune with your ancestors, and I ask an ancestor that needs the most healing right now to step forward, and they share their story. So there's a form of mediumship and a form of like energy healing, and I'm moving my hands. And these stories bring out themes that you're dealing with. They're stories that resonate with you. So a lot of it, like sometimes the people are like, oh my gosh, like I thought that was me, or like this happened, or like, oh my gosh, this is the family, and it connects. And so all of a sudden, all of these parts of yourself that felt really scary, that felt like too shy or intimidated to share with somebody, or that you needed to get through, like you're not having to do that hard work of like, okay, I'm about to tell you all my deepest and darkest secrets. Cause I'm going to be like, okay, well, here are all the secrets.
Yeah.
There they are.
Yep.
Cool. Now they're gone. Like, like now, like let's like, move them forward. So it's fascinating to see. I love that aspect of storytelling and questions that come through this type of work, because it's like, well, like you said, we'll bring it back to Elsa and Anna and Frozen, and how we watch these movies and we see a part of ourselves, a part of our journey that resonates. And that's the type of work I do. You're going to see the story of your ancestors, the people that came before you, or the story of your soul that needs to go through, and the guidance that you need to help confirm everything that goes through. And because, we're doing it in a way that it's not, it's actually more intimate to you than ever, but it feels a bit more removed than, going in and like confessing your sins to
Right.
somebody.
Right.
That part of the healing just opens you up, and things get moving, and the energy gets flowing, and it's stunning. That like there are some big stories of people having huge changes in their life because of it.
I bet there is. Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, please. So I am so grateful for you, and I am so grateful for every millisecond of this conversation, I'm just feeling so lit up and so connected to you. So thank you so much, from the dancing through to this very second and beyond. I will carry this with me for the rest of the day. Jen, what is something that you would like the listeners to walk away with today?
I'm going to bring it back to the podcast, and I want you to know you're awesome.
Mm.
You know, I want you, whatever you are going through right now, wherever you are on that journey, whether you are feeling like on top of the world and you're awesome, or you're partway through, or you're like looking at that mountain and being like, oh gosh, you've got this. Like, take that, best next right step. and it's going to be great. And you're not alone. You're not alone. You get the support, allow the people to be there for you, because they're all around you. Like, the ancestors are all around you. Like, everybody is already there, and it's not in like a creepy stalker way. I always have to remind people, they're not creepily stalking you, and they're just like,
so when I'm in the shower, yeah.
no. They're just like, there's just so much love. Everybody wants you to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
They really want you to succeed.
That is such a beautiful truth. And so if that's something that when you just heard it, it made you go, yeah, but then ask yourself, what's the truth you would choose? What is the belief that lifts you up, that moves you forward, that propels you to that higher state? And then pick the one that works for you, because you're a fucking grown up. You can do that now. So
you are.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, my friend. This has been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to all of our adventures together. I will just say that we have a big one planned, but I'll just kind of keep that like that. So consider yourself somewhat forewarned that there's some more Jen Wende in my life that I'm excited to share. So thank you, everybody, for listening. And if you would like to continue this conversation and really be a part of the Hot Mess to Awesomeness community, I would love for you to join us over in Facebook. So we're at the Busy Women Being Awesome Club. It is definitely the fun place to be. So feel free to pop over there and say hello. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the show. Join Dion again next week to learn more about what you can do to go from hot mess to awesomeness.